Good day, tamers, and welcome to some thoughts and processes from Magita Swiftly. So, did today's EU regional online event, came 18th, which is the best I've actually done for a long time in any set of tournaments. Very happy with that, to be fair. I've literally not played the deck. I picked it up start of May, got the bits from like Europe, got here by the 1st of May, 2nd of May kind of thing. Put together, haven't touched the deck. And literally the first time playing it was today. And essentially only losing 2 games, or 2 rounds out of the 6. I'm happy with that, to be fair. Machinery Run, hell of a deck. It ain't going to get restrictions because it's not a good deck. It's only specifically good against a specific deck, which is Beelze, because it stops Beelze from doing anything, because you can't get bigger than it. You can't crash into it. It just goes, okay, and then you die. Good stuff. But what we do have here is actual live reactions to the restricted list. I had like a thoughts on it when we first heard about it a few days ago, but I didn't really think to do a ban list video. For instance, Yu-Gi-Oh's got their ban list video now. A lot of people are kind of up in arms. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it here? Is it there? But I think we should go through this together and actually have a good time. So restricted to 1, decks can only include 1 copy of these cards. As you can see, he's got both the art and the alternate art. To be fair, this is just like a more colourful version of this card, but I don't know, I think they're pretty nice. And they actually give you reasons why. And I think this is something that Bandai does, it's really, really good, is they actually give you a reason for why this card is either getting restricted or it's too powerful, or why they need to look at it as a card of restriction. When using plant, vegetation, fairy decks, this card can easily devolve to a level 6, even with very little memory. This limits the future game design possibilities for green cards and plant, vegetation, fairy decks. It also removes the need for another level 5 card with distortion. For those reasons, we decided to restrict this card to 1 copy per deck. You can't make green good, because green is so good at what it does that it is annoying to sort of like have to think like what you want to do with it. Also, at the same time, Bandai has to sell the next sets. So we get in the Rosemon support in BT13. We get in more Rosemon support in BT14 because it's the adventure stuff. You know, they want this card to not be so meta competitive. They want to look at the fairy stuff. So when you are playing the Palmon, you are getting more fairies, you are getting more vegetation. Makes sense from both a business point of view and from a, like, we're fed up of having a deck that basically spends like free memory to go to like level 6 and then just poops out the game. I understand. The whole idea for green, though, and I've said this for a very long time, is you need to sort out the costing of your level 6s. You can't have super cheap sources up to level 6 and have like its ridiculous cost and then be like, oh, we're having to stop you from having a cheap lower levels. That is literally your game design for green. If you fix the cost of the megas for green, that's perfectly fine. Fix them as well as restricting things. Everything's good. I don't like when you restrict things in the English meta, like 6 months before we get the cards that are going to fix the issue or, you know, change an issue that we currently have. Because then you have 6 months of us struggling with a deck that just doesn't cycle. Luckily for this, like, there are other cards that can be used here. Entamon's a very good card. Ajira is already a very good card in this deck. You can use Blossomon. I think someone said to me, Pistimon is also a card. I can't remember what it is. I think it's like Digital Option 2, so it costs you 1 to go to. That to me is fine. Reducing the cost to 1, like other decks do with their cards, that's perfectly fine. That's within keeping. You still have to pay a cost, even though the cost is technically suspending, which in a deck that wants everything to be suspended on both your side and your opponent's side, neither here nor there. Ipmon. I have to say I fully agree with this, but the chances of you like doing it is still very like low percentage. We'll go through it. In the current Beelzemon deck, this card has an effect that trashes an additional card for the deck when this card is trashed. Trash this card. If it's not trashed by its own effect, you can mill up to 3 more cards. If it is trashed by its own effect, it doesn't activate again. 9 times out of 10, if you do trash this, you'll be trashing this on the cards themselves. So you'll go like, trash 2, Impmon, okay, trash 3 from Impmon, you'll trash an Impmon, trash an Impmon, then trash like a Wizard monster. It's very rare that you'll get like an Impmon and then you'll have a gap and then you'll like do something else and you get to mill another Impmon and then you'll have a gap and then you'll mill another Impmon. It's very rare that's the case, but I do agree that it's very much like what's making the deck run. And again, I think this is the issue with Bandai, where they should have just left this deck to be around for like maybe just till the end of BT12 and then had the restricted list come in at the start of BT13. Because there's other purple decks you can play that are still very good. And then this deck doesn't have to be like the majority of the purple decks currently running around. You can have like the purple based Minerva stuff. It's not as good in my opinion as this, because this deck can kind of just go, but you are high rolling that chances. Additionally, it even removes the need to use this card such as the ST1411 Iron Maker. No? You need to use this card. It even removes the needs for using cards such as, no, you want to use that card to put it back on top of the deck, so you can activate an effect when it's trashed from the deck. Showing the game speed and limiting future. The reason why this card is good is because it has synergy with this card. Like, Iron Maker only really synergizes with 3 cards, technically 4, kind of 5. And if you're thinking, what are those cards? Those cards are essentially Rival's Barrage, let me get something out of the trash because I've milled it by mistake. Death Slinger, because I want to gain memory so I can continue playing my game. It's kind of annoying at the start of the game when you don't really have anything to do and you're like, crap, I can't do anything. 3, Wizardmon Promo, which is also in the structure deck. Hey, I mill this, I gain a memory, I can still do my stuff. To a degree, we already know this Impmon's good. EX2, Beelzemon, because then you can play an Impmon, so you get a body on the field. And then Blast Mode, EX2 and the structure deck one both have an effect of when you trash it from the deck, you can do cool things. You don't really care about having access to like 7th Full Circle because that's a card that activates from the trash and not because it is milled from the trash to the trash. So that doesn't really work, but this makes sense here. And then accelerating the gain speed and limiting future game design. Don't use that as an excuse because that's not what this is. This is essentially a card that was used to do something that makes you have more trash quicker. The biggest issue I have about this card is, unlike with the Blossomon, where it has other cards that can generally fill its role, there's no other card in the game that has the same uniqueness that is Impmon. Like, yes, 3 cards is very effective, especially if you do get to have 12 cards from this over the game. And I'm not saying like that's not powerful or effective, but the issue is like there's no other Impmon or there's no other cards that you can have from the deck to trash that will activate like an effect like this. So you're slowing down the gameplay of the deck that you want to do this, and it's the only deck that really gets to do this outside of like milling Megidramon, which will have its own place and purpose in the meta, but will at no point ever be as good as this deck. The issue I have here is when they say things like this for me means that you need to actually think of something that could replace these cards. You've just sold us basically false hopes and promises. Japan had nearly 9 months of this deck and everything being out. Well, they had it. Let's see, the deck came out in December, and I think the BT12 for them came in like the end of November. So December, January, February, March, April, May, June. So they had 6.5 months. No. 7.5 months of a deck that was doing this and people having fun. It's occasionally in the meta now. It's not massively everywhere, but this is one of these weird things where like they're preempting how good it is, despite the fact that I think it's had like one of the lower win rates of any like best deck in the format. Like Blue Hybrid by this point, in what was it, from the January to the August, won like everything by the end of it. Like essentially, it had like at least multiple wins per region per every event it's out. This here, I think I've seen it like win like a couple of ultimates, and I think it's in a couple of regionals. It's not the best deck in the format. It's just a very good deck in the format. And the other thing I don't like about this is the fact that you've hit both Greymon decks and you've hit Beelze decks, but you've not hit Hunters because you're worried about hitting Hunters early, because then people are going to get upset with you like they were with Cross Arts, because you basically banned the cards out of Cross Arts when people, literally the day after people bought the boxes. Don't spit in our faces and tell us it's, vodka. It ain't. Reference the number of the cards in your trash. For those reasons, we decided to restrict this card to 1. The deck will still roll as this as 1. It's just the fact that you probably want to loop it more with the fact of like you do this, hope you hit some rivals barrages, maybe EX to Beelze so you can play onto the field, do some searches, blah blah blah. Swing into it, die, pop a barrage, bring it back, Digivolve something, put it back on top of the deck, let you do that. So you need to loop it for that now rather than having other reasons. The other thing is the deck is very weird that it doesn't really have any other milling cards that you can have, or like cards that can be milled to gain effects from. And that's the other biggest problem with this is like it's not about milling the cards in the first place. It's about having cards that have the effects to be milled. So, for instance, there's nothing in the game outside of like the 6 things that have those effects that will let you mill something and you gain an effect from it. This is obviously trashing trash. Personally speaking, if we have like, I don't know, like a Demon Lord boost, which is like a memory boost for them, when it's trashed from the deck, just put it to the back and then have like, gain a memory, or gain 2 memory, and then trash another card maybe. But yeah, the reason I don't like this is the fact that they're not replacing it with another card, and there's nothing on the horizon to be replaced with this card, and that's the annoying thing for me. I think the hit is needed, and I do think it's very hard to find out where you want the hit, because the EX2 Beelzemon is very good at what it does, but nothing substantial. You don't want to hit anything from the structure decks because then you're just going to like make people think like I'm not going to buy things for anymore. If the second I buy my stuff, you just ban it. I think you had that issue for a long time in the Japanese meta, and then that's why Konami of America doesn't ban things straight away when they should do, because they're obviously worried that people are going to pick up products and be like, "Oh, we're going to ban that now because we've realised that it's just not fun to play into." Whereas like me today, I played 6 rounds, and despite the 2 that I lost, which were the 2 I was to them because I just couldn't do anything to their board states. It's not a one and done deal where you instantly just high roll every single game and just like smash things. I think I only won 1-2-0 games rounds, so I had 3 rounds of 3 games because you don't always high roll, you don't always hit all the good cards, you don't always hit all where you need to hit your things. There are multiple times where I said you'll like hit one Ipmon will then mill the other 3 Ipmons, and it's like, well, I've got 3 more cards in the trash, but like it wasn't as effective as it could be. And I do think that's where Bandai needs to think like, yes, this card's very good right now, and this deck's really good right now, but come BT 13, the deck isn't the best deck in the room anymore. This just needs doing because Japan just didn't know how powerful this card was, and then essentially didn't understand why everyone who isn't playing Metal Garurumon hates this card, including me. It's the only deck my wife plays. I've told her she needs to make a better deck now because she's very upset. This incorrect decks that use the BT9028 where Garurumon X antibody. A quick defeat is possible using this card. It doesn't have extreme power in current play environments, but this card limits the future game design possibilities for decks that refer to the Garurumon. For this reason, we've decided to restrict this card to 1 copy per deck. Yes and no. You just need to make a better version of this card, except with this. To be fair, this card is very strong and always has been. And the fact that people didn't realise this until we got to BT9 was very strange to me. There are other Garurumon cards that give you Security Attack +1, but I think it's like if your opponent has like no sources on a Digimon, or you have jamming, or it's like I can't remember what they are now. There are other cards that give you Security Attack +1 for having Garurumon. Or your opponent has like 8 cards in their hand instead. But yeah, this card's always been powerful. I've always said this is the problem card. It's not so much the fact that the X antibody was the problem. It just made it quicker. And, you get a lot of people going like, oh, the reason why they restricted it on the Ultimate Cup list is because obviously the problem. No, the problem is the fact that you have a Were Garurumon that at any point gets to swing twice anyway, doesn't die unless it gets hit by an option card. Which, to be fair, in a lot of decks these days, at least you're playing Security Control, you don't run a lot of removal because you can't afford to have removal in your decks because that's how Bandai's essentially made a game where like you have to rush everything down because you can't slow the game down, which is what Security Control is. So they get 2 swings off for free. Probably don't die into one of those hits. Might die on the second hit. You get to remove 2 sources, buy both Gabumons, go into your possibly promo where Garurumon that also acts as a Sagittarius mode that also acts as a Garurumon. Then did you evolve into the X antibody, which takes you unspend. Then you get to swing again because you got Security Attack +1 now, so you swing into, or you swing on the second one, go into it with X antibody underneath it, swing for 2, don't die, swing another 2, don't die. Did you evolve up into Metal Garurumon from EX1 into X antibody, unspend for 1, and then swing for game. And if you don't swing for game, you can go into Blitz Omnimon and swing for game from there. Like, the card is just very good. It was always in a weird position where it was always a good card, but a lot of people just didn't see it, and I don't understand why. Essentially, you could do this on 1 turn, wait for your opponent to go over. If you've got enough cards in hand, go up into the metal Yeah, Metal Grumon. Swing for 2, don't die, go into X antibody, unsuspend, swing for another 2, go into Blitz, swing again. Like, that's why I just don't understand like what people don't see. Like, the card itself is very powerful. Nothing else is giving you like these extra attacks. You know, security attack +1 is a very powerful inherited effect, or effect in general. It's just people don't seem to see it unless you're playing those cards and go like, oh, yeah, it's really powerful. And then you'll just go like, no, that's not the reason. Same reason why I think this isn't a very good card to ban right now, because in a couple of months' time, or like 7 or 8 weeks, it ain't going to be that important. And then this. This is weird. So I understand why. It definitely is a game design choice. But you now have to produce a Grand Coagamon that is good. And that is the biggest problem for this deck. So you can only play it one of. As this card can add multiple activations of Security Attack +1, this card allows decks with Grandis to easily defeat an opponent in a short amount of time. Yes, the attacked players has a few methods of defense, which is true, and this card has been used in play environments for longer than we expected. For these reasons, this card limits the future game design possibilities for decks that refer to Grand Coagamon, or Insectoid cards. Therefore, we decided to restrict this card to 1 copy per deck. Now, the biggest issue with this card is it's not so much that it's powerful, it's the fact that it combos too well with Grandis. Grandis is too powerful. And you might be thinking, like, oh, you said that the pro... Yeah, no. So the reason why this is too powerful is, especially now we have X-Antibody stuff, although people tell you they don't play the X-Antibody stuff, is you can trash, like, 6 when you go into your big boy mode. Go into 6. So you trash all that, gain your extra effects, gain your memory back, whatever. Go into Grandis. Grandis then will swing into something for, like, 4 checks. Because it's 16, it's a minimum of 16k. Your opponent, when it suspends a Digimon, you know, you gain memory because, well, they lose memory, so you gain memory. You then punch through something because you're a mean face. Because they punch through something, you get to do piercing damage. They take a 4 security. You're 16k. There's very few things in security that don't just get rid of you. And then you swing, you unsuspend and then swing again. So that's 5 checks. Now, either you've already checked once with like a random like rookie or a floodgate for the turn. You swung in, so you remove the first security, so the next 4 hits just take out the rest of the security, and then you swing for the game. So essentially, especially because it's green as well, you're doing it very quickly. So there's a good chance, like, turn 3, it's turn 3 OTK. But I've said before, the biggest problem with Grand Coagamon is there's no other good Grand Coagamons. Like, all the other ones are very janky at the best. We just got one in BT12. You can't run that Grand Coagamon in these decks. It's specifically a offshoot of Dino Beamon. So you have to play Dino Beamon to make that card good. And even then, you play an Imperial. So yeah, I don't understand their philosophy. I do hope that we do get a new Grand Coagamon in BT14 because there's space for it. And like as I said, like this makes sense if you take this off, but then you put like a better one in that's maybe has an inherited effect, which like, when you pierce an opponent's, when you defeat an opponent's Digimon in battle, you may gain a memory, or you gain DP, or maybe you do like pop a security once per turn. So that way, when Grandis does go through, you are going like, okay, killed something, pop a security, pierce for 1, unsuspend, pierce again, do 3 damage. That's okay because you're not essentially doing the weird thing of like, hey, look, I'm just gonna ruin your day. OTK decks do need to be slowed down a bit, but at the same time, I do think that the game needs to figure out like how to have a aggro deck, a mid-range deck, and a control deck without the control deck making the game so boring you don't want to play. The mid-range deck not powerful enough where it's just slowing everything down, and then the aggro deck where you're not like, oh, it's turn 2 and I've died. So that's where it needs to be. But yeah, that is the 4 cards that got restricted this time. This, I didn't really see it coming, but it makes sense as to why. This, we knew something had to happen with Beelze, and to be fair, they could have limited any of the cards that you trash. This one just makes sense from like it's one of the older cards. It didn't get an in-deck reprint like the other ones did, so this makes sense to get rid of this. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm a bit concerned. Maybe if it was at 2, because 1 is weird. Like you want it, like the deck is about getting trash into your trash, and it's again like it's so high rolly anyway. It's weird. This I've said for a long time. The fact Japan never saw this coming is because they restricted it from all the tournaments for literally years because they realised that people outside of Japan just couldn't get hold of it unless they were going to pay a ridiculous price. So they restricted it, put in the reprint set. They've obviously had it now for 6 months, and they're wondering like why this deck that's like nearly over a year old now is like topping events, and they're like, nah, we don't want this. Get rid of this card. Get down to 1. And then again, this is the same thing. This came out in BT4, I think, for us. BT5, yeah, BT4 for us. And yeah, it's it's 2 years later now, and they're wondering why this card's still good. You made a good X antibody for it, and that's why. To be fair, and then you made a terrible Hercules X antibody. You owe us an apology for that one. But yeah, that is that, guys. Thank you for being here. That's my ramblings on this, and I will see you guys next time for cool stuff from BT14. Have a good day, and peace out. Goodbye. See you, Space Cadet. Good day, tamers. Welcome to this wonderful little bit of insight.